Started then. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the board members and guests to the Wednesday, January 27th, 2021 meeting of the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, Placer County Airport Land Use Commission, Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency, and the Placer County Local Transportation Authority. We're conducting this meeting via teleconference under Executive Order N-29-20, approved by Governor Newsom on March 17th, 2020. We appreciate your participation and your patience with this technology. A recording of this meeting will be posted to our website after the meeting. With respect to public comment, there'll be multiple opportunities throughout the meeting for public comment. When I open an item up for public comment, please use the raise hand function to indicate that you'd like to make a public comment on this item. If you're joining the webinar on your computer, you can do that by clicking the raised hand button on the middle bottom of the Zoom webinar window. If you're joining over the phone, you can do so by pressing *9. PCTPA staff will then call out individuals who've raised their hand, giving them permission to speak one by one. When you're called, please state your full name and city of residence. You'll then have a maximum of 3 minutes to provide your public comment, and PCTPA staff will notify you when your 3 minutes is up. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties and are unable to provide your public comment, please email your comment to Sylvie Sobel, our clerk, at ssabol@pctpa.net. With respect to the board, because this meeting is being conducted via teleconference, all votes will be roll call votes. And board members, we ask that you state your name prior to making a motion or a second for the record. And once an item has been moved and seconded, I'll request the clerk call a roll call vote. Thank you. Luke, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Did I not get unmuted?
Nope. Did not.
Sorry, let me do it again. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I need to unmute. Sophie, would you please do the roll call for us?
We'll get that. Yeah. Baker.
Here.
Broadway.
Here.
Burris.
Here.
Holmes.
Here.
Howdeschelt.
Here.
Joyner.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Spokley.
Here.
Wilkins. We're good.
All right. I do want to take a moment before we get started to welcome our new board members, Matt Spokley, City of Auburn Council Member, Bruce Howdeschelt, City of Roseville Council Member, and Suzanne Jones, Placer County Board of Supervisors. Welcome to you all. And I also want to take a moment to thank our outgoing chair, Trinity Burrows, doing an excellent job in a very, very difficult year. So we'll go ahead and get started with the meeting. Our next item up is approval of the minutes. I just want to remind everyone that you did not have to be a member of the board at the last meeting to be able to vote on this. You can abstain if you prefer. So is there a motion for approval of the minutes?
Holmes moves.
First motion to approve.
I heard
I'll second.
Holmes moving it, and who seconded? Trinity?
I'll second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Baker.
Aye.
Broadway.
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Joyner,
Aye.
Jones, Spokely.
Yes.
Good, thank you. We move on to agenda review. Does anyone have any requests for alterations on the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I would like to just inform you that on item M, I will be recusing myself. My company is involved with this project.
which one was it again?
Item M,
M, as in
Yeah.
Michael?
yes.
Got it.
So hi, this is Deanne Gillick, and I'm the general counsel for PCTPA. And I'm sure that most of you are familiar with, not participating with Zooms. So for perhaps, we're supposed to leave the diocese and leave the room, which is a little hard with our Zoom. So perhaps just if you could eliminate your video during that item and then stay listening and then come back after that item so that we can formally take care of that, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, staff requests that we do a slight alteration in the agenda this morning. Our request is to first take items A through H, the consent agenda first. And then instead of moving into the public hearing, then go to item J, which is a presentation by Caltrans on the Highway 49 corridor. And then go back to the public hearing, item I, and then the rest of the agenda items with K forward in order, if that would be okay with you.
Is that acceptable to everyone?
I'm good with it.
All right, I've got nodding heads all the way around. We'll go with that then. I don't think we need any action taken on that. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to public comment. Kathleen, do we have any public comment?
Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no public comment at this time.
All right. Moving on then to item F, the consent calendar, Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member or staff member or interested citizen may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. With respect to item F, does anybody want to remove an item from that consent calendar?
I have none.
I see none. Kathleen, any member of the public wishing to remove an item?
Mr. Chair, there's no public comment at this time.
All right, I will accept a motion on the consent calendar for PCTPA.
Holmes moves approval.
Howdeshelt seconds.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Baker,
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Yes.
Howdeshelt,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Spokely.
Yes.
All right. Passes unanimously. We'll move on to item G, the consent calendar for Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency. There is only one item here. Does anyone wish to pull it for discussion? Doesn't look like it from the board. Kathleen, any member of the public wishing to pull the item?
Mr. Chair, there's no public comment at this time.
All right. We'll go ahead and move on to the roll call vote.
I think you need a motion first.
All right.
I move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All these formalities.
You'll get the hang of it.
Oh, I will. This is the first Zoom meeting I've run, so it's a little awkward. All right, Sylvie, please.
Baker,
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Joyner,
Aye.
Jones,
Yes.
Spokely.
Yes.
All right, very good, thank you. Moving on to item H, the consent calendar for the Airport Land Use Commission. We have only one item. Anyone wishing to remove it for discussion? Seeing no one. Kathleen, any member of the public wanting to comment or remove the item?
There's no public comment at this time.
All right. Do I have a motion on this item?
I'll move approval of the consent.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Trinity was the second. Who moved it? Matt?
Stokely?
Okay, Baker.
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Crashing planes out there.
Joyner,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Spokely.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
All right. So we are now jumping down to item J. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Why don't you take that one away for us, Mike?
Sure. And Kathleen, have we promoted our speakers to panelists?
Yes, Sue and Amber are here.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This morning, we have a very important presentation that will be made by Amarjeet Benapal, District 3 Director, and Sue Takar, the Deputy Director of Caltrans District 3. This presentation is for Highway 49 and the activities that are ongoing on that corridor. The most important of which they will cover, which is the preparation of a corridor management plan for Highway 49 from Nevada County all the way down to Interstate 80. This is a project that we are participating in with Caltrans at the lead, with our partner member agencies, Placer County and the City of Auburn, and then also our sister agency, the Nevada County Transportation Commission, Nevada County, and the cities of Grass Valley and Nevada City. With that, I will turn it over to Amarjeet Benapal, who will start the presentation.
Very good. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and PCTPA board members. Good to see you all. Mike Lucan, the Executive Director, and PCTPA staff, along with all of the general public who's joining us this morning. A very best morning to all of you, and we're still in January, so Happy New Year to all of us as well, and let's hope this is going to be a better year compared to 2020, because we all are vested in trying to make sure it is better for us. First of all, I wanted to thank you for allowing us the time to join you today to share our common interest, which is trying to provide the services to our joint constituency, which does not see the political boundaries or county boundaries or city boundaries. They just wanted to go from point A to point B, conduct their business, and be able to be with their loved ones or whatever their destinations may be. And so we wanted to share with you the efforts which we are taking on working with, as your Executive Director in the introduction stated, working with all of our stakeholders in this corridor from Auburn to Grass Valley. That what are the concepts we are considering? This is the critical step for all of us to be working together for bringing the investment into our area. As you can all recall, and many of you have been on this board for a long time, or representing your local communities, that the partnership between Caltrans and PCTPA is a hallmark of all of the improvements we have made in Placer County. And that goes to starting with I-80 Sarah College interchange, excuse me, interchange project to Lincoln Bypass, trying to address the bottleneck on Interstate 80, and many more. And that's testament to your steadfast partnership, collaboration, and the working together relationship we have over the years. And we wanted to continue to forward that as we make the further investment in the corridors like 49. So with that, let me pass the baton to Sue Tacker, who is the planning deputy. And she's the one, along with her team, is spearheading this study, which we wanted to engage you, because that becomes the foundation for our planning efforts and improvements plus investments in future in this corridor. So with that, Sue, please take it away.
So maybe, hi, this is Deanne again. Before Sue starts, if we can check our mute buttons, because there's a lot of feedback. So during the presentation, if we could just, maybe that might help with the feedback. And sorry to interrupt, but I thought, thank you.
Well, now we're all on mute.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, Chair Joyner and the PCTPA board. Congratulations to the new board members. Looking forward to working with all of you in your new capacity. As Amarjeet mentioned, very proud to be a partner with PCTPA, the staff and the team that's in front of us today. We have a very solid relationship and our goal is to continue to grow that relationship. So today I am here to present, first of all, Sue Tacker. I'm the Deputy for Planning and Local Assistance here in District 3. I report to Amarjeet Benapal. And I have a staff about 50 people that do planning, local assistance, and we do travel forecasting and modeling, as well as the advanced planning documents, the PIDs that we start the project initiation process off for. That's what happens in my division. So thank you for the slide, Erin, appreciate it. So we're here to talk about the State Route 49 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. It's a mouthful to say, so I will refer to it lovingly as CMCP going forward. It is basically a plan that is replacing our transportation concept reports. We used to call them TCRs, and you may be familiar with that terminology, but the CMCP is a modern document that is comprehensive in nature. And the big change between the TCR and the CMCP is the engagement component. We want to make sure that we engage not only all of you, the cities and counties, but the public that uses our system to make sure that the plan that we're developing is going to be used by all users and it incorporates all modes. You may ask, why is the timing for the 49 CMCP happening today? And there's twofold. One is you're familiar with 49 safety audit currently happening. And the second is that SB1 is in front of us. And if you want to compete for SB1 funding, especially the Congested Corridors Program, a CMCP is needed. And you're all familiar with that based upon the Placer Sacramento Gateway Plan being utilized for our Cycle 2 round of funding. If we didn't have the Placer Sacramento Gateway Plan, we would not have been able to secure over $60 million from the SB1 program to be able to apply to the roadways of Placer and Sacramento counties. So that's the two reasons why we're doing the CMCP for 49 right now. What you have in front of you is the map showing the corridor for the 49 corridor. It basically starts from the I-80 junction in Auburn all the way to State Route 20 in Grass Valley. It's about 22 miles. And the corridor is a combination of 6-lane urban thoroughfare and 2 to 3 lane conventional highways. And we also have a 4-lane conventional freeway system. It's a pretty diverse segment of roadway. And but it's more than just the infrastructure that we're looking at. The 22 miles that we're looking for is the Caltrans State Highway System, but we're also looking at local roads and streets in Auburn, Grass Valley, and the unincorporated parts of Placer and Nevada counties. Some of these local roads act as collectors to 49, and others can act as parallel facilities to 49. And so it's very important for us to, again, look at it comprehensively. It's not all about the state highway system. And it never really is, because we have to work in partnership with our locals to make sure that the public sees us as seamless, that the work that we do is diverse enough to cover all the modes and all the users, and there is no us versus them. It's all we. Next slide. So here we go. This is the partnership that I was talking about. Collaboration between partners is ultimately the key to successful corridor operations. Only by working together and pooling our resources and skill sets are we going to be able to develop projects that provide the traveling public a safe, diverse option to reach their destinations and the businesses to have the reliability they need in order to deliver their goods. As Amarjeet mentioned and I mentioned, we have been very successful with this approach with Cycle 2 funds, but I don't want that to be the only thing that we're successful on. We're looking forward to Cycle 3, and I'll be discussing that in the next slide. So Cycle 3 is going to be here before we know it. This summer of 2021, there's going to be workshops by CTC reviewing the guidelines. And this is the time where we can provide some comments of what we believe worked well in Cycle 2 and what didn't work well in Cycle 2. So I look forward to your support, Mike Lucan's staff, as well as the board support to help fix some of the things that we run into problems with in Cycle 2 by being a vocal voice at the CTC workshops that are going to be happening this summer. The applications for Cycle 3 are going to be most likely in January, February of 2022. So we do have some time. One thing to remember is that to be successful, a lot of outreach is needed. And Luke knows this firsthand, as well as Mike. We need to make sure that whatever project we propose going forward, we vet that through CTC, CalSTA, Caltrans, and we have that opportunity between the workshop in summer of 2021 to before the application announcement. CTC is available for us to be able to talk through our project concept. We can get their feedback as to what are our strengths and our weaknesses so that we can provide the best application possible. So that being said, that covers the SCCP, but there's other funds also. There's a whole array of them listed on the slide. All of them will benefit from a CMCP because a CMCP shows a concerted effort where all of the partners have provided the feedback. We have the engagement from the communities. We have basically a comprehensive look of what everyone needs in the corridor, and we can use that as a stepping stone to accomplish great things. Next slide. The CMCP focuses on a couple of key themes. The first one is the increased multimodal facilities. In order to reduce VMT and GHG, along with encouraging fewer solo trips, multimodal projects within this corridor are essential. Some input that we've received so far from our meetings is to increase local transit routes and frequencies within Auburn. Also increasing commuter transit frequencies between Auburn and Grass Valley. And then lastly, increasing the frequency of intercity connections to Amtrak by reestablishing the throughway bus to Grass Valley and Nevada County with stops in Auburn and Sacramento, Auburn from Sacramento. I know these things may sound like really far out there because of the COVID environment, but I'm optimistic. We're not going to be in COVID forever. I'm hoping that we're going to go back to what we used to have, which was a thriving transit system. So we need to think ahead. A lot of the stakeholders and TAC members as part of this team are thinking that this is how it's going to be in the future. I think that you'll agree with me that this is not how we want to live going forward. We want to have that thriving transit system, and to do that, we need to plan for it. Next slide. And second key emphasis area is to elevate bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Specifically, the increase the amount of bicycle lanes, not only in 49, but to encourage all of our local partners to add lanes on local roads, to improve the connectivity to State Route 49 and beyond. Some segments of our freeway system are not suitable or feasible for bikes and peds because of the speeds or because of the terrain. So we want to work in concert with our local partners to make sure that there is a system available. However, it may not be on our system, but we'll work together to make sure that that system does get developed. We also want to increase the amount of dedicated bicycle trails as their own network on the network where opportunities present. We want to encourage commercial business centers to add more bicycle parking. And lastly, increase the construction of sidewalks along the state highway system and on the local roads where feasible. Next slide. So this slide lists the 8 performance metrics that the team has decided would be the best for the 49 corridor. Safety, reducing the number of incidents on 49 and collectors that serve as evacuation routes. transportation efficiency, reducing the delay while improving the throughput, system reliability, improved highway travel time and transit performance. Even during the incidents, we need to keep that in mind. Incidents are going to happen. We got to make sure that the system is reliable even when those things do happen, unfortunately. Multimodal accessibility, increased access to existing and future rail and transit hubs. As I mentioned before, stops in Auburn and beyond. Air pollution, greenhouse gas emission improvement by reducing VMT, pollutants, and GH emissions in the corridor. Economic prosperity, strengthening the Auburn and Placer County economy with greater job access and reliability in freight movement. Modern infrastructure by adding smart ITS elements, CCTV, CMS, loop detection, increasing the fiber optics. And then lastly, efficient land use, reducing the reliance on single occupancy vehicles and encouraging mode shifts. All these seem like daunting tasks, but the team is working together and in partnership with the cities and counties to make sure that we are able to address all of these 8 performance metrics. Next slide. So here's a schedule. It's not very visible, but the PowerPoint that I'm sharing, I have given to Mike, and so he'll be sharing it with you guys. That maybe you can read it better, but the most important things to note is that we have an aggressive schedule. The CMCP that we're talking about today will be delivered by November of 2021. And that again is strategic because we want to complete the CMCP prior to cycle 3. That's one of the requirements of SCCP, as I mentioned. So by having it done by the end of this year, we should be eligible to apply for funding for cycle 3 for some of the projects that we would want to entertain. Thus far, we've had 3 TAC meetings and 1 stakeholder meeting. The next scheduled TAC meeting is February 3rd. And then we're going to be discussing the community characteristics, disadvantaged communities, website, and open houses. Open houses are currently scheduled for April and August of this year. The next stakeholder meeting will be during the last week of February. We encourage the PCTPA board members to join us on the stakeholder meeting. We, at the present time, do not have any board members on the stakeholder meeting. Mike Lucan is on both our TAC and our stakeholder, but we would appreciate, I know we can't have more than 3, I guess, for the quorum, but we can have at least 1 or 2. So if you have interest in furthering the work on the CMCP, please reach out to myself, and I'd be happy to add you on to the stakeholder group. Okay, next slide. So Amarjeet and I are open for any questions that you have at this time. I also have placed the name of the corridor planning manager who is overseeing the CMCP for 49 on this slide. And just for your information, this is one of 4 CMCPs that we're working on. The other CMCPs we're working on in District 3 are the I-80, I-5, and 9970 CMCPs. Along with these CMCPs, we're also working on an active transportation plan covering the entire district. And that plan will also be done by summer of 2021. That plan will feed into our CMCPs and provide very valuable data that's needed to make sure that we cover all of the gaps in our bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And again, we're open for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Sue. A lot of good information there. I'll open it up to the board. Any questions, any comments from the board members? Seeing none. Mr. Spokley, I would have thought you'd have something.
I'm actually good, Mark, or Paul, thank you.
All right. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this?
Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no public comment at this time.
Wow. You got off easy this morning.
Oh, Mr. Chair, this is Councilman Howdershelt from Roseville. I just want to compliment Sue and Amarjeet on an excellent presentation. Just the right amount of information, just the right number, sources for additional information if we want to dive deeper. So thank you for that really concise presentation.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I would point out that Aaron Hoyt is our staff member on point for this project, and he's also our staff member leading the Highway 49 sidewalk gap closure project that we received $14.4 million to implement. And so, Aaron heads up that project. So if you have any questions in the future, not only can you contact me, but Aaron as well.
All right. Sounds good. This is an information item only, so there's no action needed. Thank you both for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Joyner. Have a
Yeah.
great day.
You too. With
Thank
that,
you
we'll
for having us.
circle back around to item I. I'll have to switch glasses here to be able to read it. Public hearing, City of Lincoln General Plan Draft Health and Safety Element Consistency Determination. And Mike, I understand David's not available, so you'll be handling this morning?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, this item is normally under the purview of David Melko, and unfortunately he is stuck in the snow up in Nevada City this morning, and sends his best wishes, but I will be making the presentation for him this morning and walking through the PowerPoint with that. The item before you this morning is a public hearing that is required under Airport Land Use Commission law for when we have a major project or amendment to a local community plan. In this case, the general plan for the City of Lincoln and its impact upon the airport in Lincoln. Next slide, if you could. And let's go to yes, thank you. So the role of the Airport Land Use Commission, which PCTPA for the new board members today also sits as, is to adopt and maintain a comprehensive land use plan and compatibility plan for our three airports. Those three airports being Lincoln Airport, Auburn Airport, and Blue Canyon Airport. And making sure that we review changes, in this case, changes to plans, zoning, and regulations around airports. Next slide. So in this case, when we have an item before us, the Airport Land Use Commission can make three determinations. One is that it's consistent with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, that it's consistent subject to conditions, or that it is inconsistent based upon specific conflicts. Next slide. So Lincoln is in the process of updating a portion of its general plan, its health and safety element, and its housing element. Now the housing element we took care of in the consent agenda because there was really no impact upon the airport based upon analysis of the City of Lincoln community development staff and our staff. And so the only item in this public hearing is the draft health and safety element. And David worked very closely with Jim Bermudez on the City of Lincoln staff to ensure that there were amendments made to the health and safety element that would protect the airport and also would protect people around the airport. And it's a very important addition to that plan. And with that, those changes, it would meet recent state legislation dealing specifically with general plans and health and safety elements. Next slide. So not only does it require a safety element, which is one of the basic elements of a general plan, but it has to have a specific goal, and that is to reduce both short-term and long-term risk of death, injuries, property damage, economic and social dislocation resulting from the community hazards, both to the airport and resulting from the airport. And then any locally relevant safety issues, such as airport land use, can be included in the jurisdiction safety element. Next slide. So again, we went through the airport layout plan, the safety element as proposed by the City of Lincoln, made some adjustments to that, worked very closely with the city of Lincoln, and have determined and recommend that we find that the changes that they made to their safety element and are consistent with airport land use compatibility program. And we recommend that you open a public hearing to take testimony on those changes and then adopt staff's recommendation. Next slide. And those are the components that we have looked for in this update, including a reference to the ALUCP, compliance with the ALUCP and all its components, that any project that comes before the City of Lincoln or their Airport Land Use Commission has to be in compliance with those changes. And again, that we include compliance with FAA rules for airport land use compatibility. And that we have a discussion of any safety impacts related to airport operations. Next slide. So in summary, these are the findings that we went over. That although limited in scope, the health and safety element does meet the requirements of state law in regards to airport land use compatibility. Next slide. Here is just some of the policies that are outlined that deal with airport hazards and our recommendations that were included in the safety element. Next slide. So the timeline again for this update is that the city submitted that to us in December for consistency review. We met with them and discussed those goals. We made amendments and recommendations and made sure that the safety element was in compliance with the ALUCP. I mentioned the housing element, which is a related item, which we took care of in the consent agenda today. And then this public hearing to determine that the health and safety element is consistent with the airport land use plan. Next slide. So again, staff's recommendation is that you find it consistent with the LUCP subject to conditions, and that the draft health and safety element be updated to include those recommendations identified in the staff report and in this PowerPoint presentation, and then move forward with a public hearing, open it up to public hearing, take any testimony, and then make those recommendations as presented in the report. With that, that concludes my presentation. Is there, I kept maybe one more slide? Yes, and that's just what I just covered. So again, David could have done this much better than I can, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have this morning.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mike. Go ahead and open it up to the board for any questions or comments. Anyone? Going once, going twice. All right, with that then, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing to accept any testimony from the public on this item.
As a reminder to members of the public who may have joined after Chair Joyner's opening, if you would like to make a comment during this public hearing, you can do so by raising your hand, utilizing the raise hand function, or dialing *9 if you have called in. I will give you all a couple minutes to indicate here if you would like to participate in the public hearing.
A couple minutes, that's generous.
A minute, you know, a little time. Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no public comment at this time.
Nor am I. All right, then we'll bring it back to the board for a vote. Do I have a motion on staff's recommendation?
Howard moves.
Burris, second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Baker,
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Joyner,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Spokely.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Passes unanimously. We'll move on now to item K, Federal Legislative Program for 2021. Mike?
Again, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. January is the time of year, January or February, when we typically bring both our federal and state legislative platforms forward to the board. Those platforms will guide us throughout the year in terms of items that we will either monitor, participate in, and or make recommendations or testify or include the board in testifying or making comments with relation to both the federal and state levels in terms of transportation. So the first item today is related to our federal legislative program. I would say with both the state and federal programs that 2020 presented a very challenging year in both regards. Nearly all of the legislative items at the state or federal and state level were placed on hold because of the pandemic and the need for, in this case, Congress and the president to focus in on COVID-19 and its impact upon our nation. And so most of the items in the federal legislative program that we were monitoring would carry over into 2021 with a couple exceptions that I'll mention today. I would note that when I conclude that Sante Esposito, our federal advocate, and his partner, Brian Esposito, are both here and will make some short comments and be able to answer any questions. So the changes this year relate to funding mainly for the federal government. Certainly we pay attention to regulatory changes that impact our pursuit of funding at the federal level, but mostly related to funding and the FAST Act. The FAST Act and its provisions were extended this year, but we're very hopeful in the coming year that we will receive action by Congress for additional funding for infrastructure, and namely for transportation, and that also there will be a moved in terms of a stimulus package for transportation and other infrastructure that is desperately needed in Placer County. And as you know, in our pursuit of the funding strategy or a potential future sales tax measure, our funding program is predicated upon a share of costs between either the state or the federal government and our local resources, which consist of local funding, be it SPARTA or funding from our member jurisdictions matched with federal funding or state funding. So it's vitally important that we be successful in the federal arena, in this case, for funding. So we are tracking with the help of our federal advocate, the potential for a mega infrastructure bill, which is going to be very, very important here in the future, especially to expansion plans for Placer County. The state of California is focusing its efforts on VMT reduction and alternative modes and safety projects. So federal funding for expansion of our highways, be it for widening of Highway 65, the phases of the 8065 interchange or any other expansion projects, federal funding is going to be vitally important. Another aspect of funding this year at the federal level is the potential for a return to what was previously termed earmarks or congressionally directed funding. It's new name that Congress and the president will likely entertain the potential to allow for that And we'll have to work very closely with our entire legislative delegation in the entire Sacramento region to see if that tool could be utilized for Placer County's very important transportation initiatives. And then lastly, in relation to the federal legislative program and also key to the state legislative program, many times our funding pursuits revolve around partnerships. As funds become more scarce, it is very important that we partner with our neighboring jurisdictions to make those projects either by county, by city, or maybe in some cases by state, in order to attract funding to those projects. And we are working very carefully on two initiatives. One is the Northern California Mega Region initiative that the San Joaquin Council of Governments, SACOG, and the Bay Area Metropolitan Transportation Commission have initiated a memorandum of agreement, which some of you are familiar with, but will guide the working, the pursuit of transportation initiatives on a mega regional scale between the Bay Area all the way up to the northern Nevada or Reno area. And we stand a great chance at getting funding when we work together in a region of that scale. And so that's very, very important to the federal pursuit of funding. And then also, I mentioned Washoe County. We are looking at opportunities to work with the Washoe County Regional Transportation Commission on projects that are to our benefit. We had worked with them in the past on some projects that along Interstate 80, and we're working very hard to renew that relationship. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in my executive director's report later on the agenda. So at the end of the staff report, it lists our legislative program for 2021. I won't go through that item by item. It's again very similar to 2020 with a couple exceptions I noted. So at this point, I'll actually, if Kathleen, if you could unmute Sante Esposito, our federal advocate, who can make some short comments on what he sees at the federal level, and as well as saying hello to the board, who may not have seen him since our last cap-to-cap trip, which was now quite some time ago. So
thank you, Mike. I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Sante.
Okay, great. So first of all, good morning. Congratulations to the new board members. And we do appreciate the opportunity to represent PCTPA in DC. And we're excited about this new Congress, new administration. We see some viable opportunities for Placer's priorities. I think Mike is going through them. I'll just go very quickly, but clearly on the highway bill, it expires at the end of September, so they have to do something this year in terms of extending the program beyond. And I think that's going to be the engine that drives an infrastructure bill. The administration has announced recently that they plan to start focusing on infrastructure next month. During the campaign, the Biden folks had a $2 trillion infrastructure plan. Last year, the House passed its own mega infrastructure bill at $1.5 trillion. The Senate never acted on that legislation, but clearly that's something that we're going to be looking at as possible funding mechanisms for various issues. We also, Michael also mentioned earmarks in the context of the FY22 Transportation Appropriations Bill. House Majority Leader Hoyer, the new chair of the House Appropriations Committee, DeLauro, and the chair of the House Transportation Committee, DeFazio, have all announced publicly that they want to do earmarks again this year. And Senator McConnell, when asked what his position would be on earmarks, did not say that he would be opposed to them. So we took that as optimistic information. The usual practice on earmarks is the Senate defers to the House. If the House takes action on doing earmarks, the Senate will follow suit. And you may recall that prior to the earmark ban, that Placer was successful in getting significant amount of money for I-80 project and various other projects that are related to that. So again, we look forward to working with you all. We're excited again about the new Congress. We think things are going to move fairly quickly. They're going to have to because highway bill has to be addressed because of the amount of work that's going to be involved in that. And if they do the infrastructure bill, that'll be this spring as well. And in order to get the transportation bills done by the end of the current fiscal year, work will have to start on those in May and June. So with that, Mike, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Sante. I did want to say before we turn it back to questions from the board that we Sante is a great advocate for us in Washington D.C. and we'll be going. His contract is up in June of this year. We'll be going out to RFP, and certainly he will bid on that project for us again. And I also wanted to say that in terms of our advocacy, we have been working on it from the aspect of a team approach. And by that, I mean, we work very closely with the Placer County CAO's office and their lobbyist, Holland and Knight, and also with the city of Roseville and their federal lobbyist, the Ferguson Group. And our lobbyists work as a team to achieve the objectives that we all that are all in our best interest here for transportation in Placer County. So just wanted to point out that aspect, and we do coordinate our priorities with those two jurisdictions as well because they have governmental affairs staff that work on this on a daily basis as well. So with that on the federal side, I will conclude, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Sante. Any questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question for Sante.
Mr. Holmes.
Good to see you. Good to hear from you, Sante. It's been a while since we've been able to be actually see you, and thank you for all the hard work you do on our behalf.
I appreciate it.
If the congressionally directed funding comes back, what is the likelihood of the Northern California delegation supporting any projects we have, particularly in Placer County?
Well, I mean, what's going to happen is, if the program comes into place, members will go out with questionnaires probably sometime in February and March, asking for submissions and requests. So obviously, whatever is decided by you all as to what projects you want to put forth, we will be, filling out that information, and that information goes back to the delegation. So it'll go back to the two senators, and it'll go back to Congressman McClintock, and then those members will decide whether or not they'll support the project. Now, we all know that Congressman McClintock has been reluctant to support earmarks in the past, and we suspect that'll be the case, although there's some indication that he would support requests if they were made by, some other member he would support on a joint effort. But the last time around, with our request on I-80, it was Senator Feinstein who really carried the day for us. And so I fully expect that we'll be working with her and Senator Padilla on whatever request you have. So it'll be individually based, but, already had conversations with Mike, and he's already talked to folks back there about trying to come up with projects that have regional appeal. That'll help. We'll make the best case we can and go from there. If we can get members to make the request, then it's a done deal. We just have to sell it to the delegation.
Okay, thank you very much. That's encouraging.
Any other members of the board with questions or comments?
Yes, Chairman Joyner. Santi, thanks for the presentation. It wasn't long ago that we used to just talk in terms of billions. Billions is now the new billions, right?
Yeah, amen.
Is there a cliff ahead that at some point in time, your crystal ball and your Placer crystal ball says there's a realization that we can't bear this debt load, and if so, other than the nation's public health,
Yeah.
Where do you see the priorities?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, and I've thought about this. My guess is once we get by COVID and all the funding that has to go with it, and once we get by the highway bill and the infrastructure bill, my guess is that come next year, all the focus is going to turn on to the deficit and the debt, and everyone's going to say, "Oh my God, look what problem! Look, what problem we have with that." I think you're absolutely right. I mean, trillions and trillions of dollars, and we've never done that in the past, but at some point that's going to come back politically.
Is that it, Bruce? Got it. Anyone else? All right, with that, then I'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Any members of the public wishing to comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, I've seen no public comment at this time.
I don't see any either. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Sante. Good information, good questions. And Bruce, I'm looking right at that cliff right along with you. I'm very concerned.
Mr. Chair, we'd ask you to move the
Yep.
recommended action.
Yep. Do I have a motion on the item?
Holmes moves.
Burr, second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Baker,
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Yes.
Haudashelt,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Spokely,
Yes.
passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll move on to item L, State Legislative Program for 2021. Mike?
Thank you. And so the second half of our legislative program deals with the state of California and our efforts at the state. And this not only involves our state advocate, Mark Watts. And Kathleen, do you know if Mark is tuned into this or not?
Yes, Mr. Watts has joined in and I've given permission to talk. Mr. Watts, can you hear us? I believe he's on mute. So why don't you continue with your introductory
Okay.
and I'll work with
I will. Yeah. So again, I'll start this and then I'll let Mark talk for a little bit and then answer any questions that you might have. So on the state side, not only do we utilize Mark's resources and his vast knowledge in maneuvering around the halls of the legislature and the governor's office and the administrative agencies of the state, but we as staff participate quite a bit more at the state level. Luke McNeil-Caird, our deputy director, participates at every RTPA meeting and the California Transportation Commission meeting and is a vital part of that. And so we spend a lot of time in terms of our state legislative priorities. I did, as I mentioned in the prior report, the policies of the state in terms of transportation have significantly changed over the past few years with a focus on projects that are VMT or vehicle miles traveled reducing. And so their funding, all of their funding programs are being geared towards non-expansion projects. And so we either have to be very creative when we submit a grant under one of the state programs, and our recent success with the SB1 competitive grant programs are a testament to that, where we have to combine a safety project or an expansion project with alternative modes, be it public transit or bike and ped projects, in order to get those projects funded. And what that means is that our larger expansion projects, this Highway 65 widening, the expansion of the remaining phases of the 8065 interchange, and any other local expansion project, it makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to utilize state funding for those projects. Or again, we have to get very creative. So we've had to shift our priorities. We certainly try to make along with a limited amount of partners, a case for the state funding those priorities, and certainly at the CTC level, our local commissioner, Rocco Davis, and some other members of the CTC feel that highway projects need to have state funding, but it's becoming increasingly difficult for us to count on state funding for those. So again, 2019 was a year of all COVID all the time. 2020, and therefore the transportation initiatives at the state were put on hold and carried over to this year. Case in point being the changes to utilization of local transportation funding, or LTF, under the Transportation Development Act. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of an echo. But that is a very important issue to us, and because we utilize LTF funding for not only public transit but for our streets and roads program. Uh-oh. Can you still hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry, I looked like my computer hung up there for a minute.
Don't say
so we are okay. So we are going to be monitoring very closely this year initiatives by the California California Transit Association to remove what are called fare box return ratio penalties, so that when we don't achieve a fare box return, we are not penalized for that, but also that we maintain the ability to use LTF for streets and roads and other priorities as well. That's very important to our member jurisdictions, and we're going to be following that very closely. But really, the remainder of our program, following our successful obtaining of Senate Bill 1413, which was our sub-county sales tax district legislation, our focus is on funding and regulatory relief for getting through CEQA and other items. So our priorities remain the same in terms of funding and making sure we have the maximum amount of flexibility, especially with the SB1 funding program. A couple of things we've added to our draft state legislative program. One is the mega region initiative, and also to reestablish our relationship with Washoe County Transportation Commission. One item I wanted to note and recommend a slight change, and that is the last bullet in our program, listed on the last page of the staff report. The state is placing great emphasis on funding and planning that deals with our vulnerable and disadvantaged populations, and certainly that's a priority for us as well. I would, however, like to amend that last bullet point to read, advocate for planning and funding for vulnerable and disadvantaged populations, and take out the phrase to be prioritized. In working with the city of Roseville, they requested that change because not only are we working on funding for vulnerable and disadvantaged populations, again, that is a priority of ours, but we have many priorities. And so we'd ask you to make that slight change. So with that, Mark, I'll turn it over to you to make any comments and answer any questions the board might have as well. Mark?
We did have Mark briefly joined via computer. It appears he has left via computer. However, there is a phone number, which I believe is him. Mark, if you have joined via phone, you need to dial *6 in order to unmute yourself. Okay, I don't know that we're going to get Mark. Mike.
Well, Mr. Chair, if we could maybe proceed with any questions the board has in terms of our state legislative agenda, and then after those, maybe we can catch up with Mark. If we can't, certainly I will follow up with Mark on any questions you have, or I'll try to answer those myself.
All right, sounds good, Mike. Any questions from the board? Doesn't look like it. You want to go ahead and move on to a motion? We just lost the phone number as well. So I'm not sure we're going to get Mark on this one, Mike.
Sorry about technical difficulties today. So
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to a motion on the item as amended.
Chair, you need to take public comment.
Yeah,
I
Mr.
do
Chair.
indeed. Thank you for the reminder. We'll open it up to public comment then. Anyone wishing to comment on this item?
No public comment at this time.
Now the motion as amended.
Move approval. Holmes.
Second, Howard.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chair, I just got word that Solvi Siebel's computer has frozen, so maybe in the interim, let me find a list and well, here she is.
Man, I don't know if I want to be in this business or the transportation business on a day like today.
There she is.
I give up. Okay, here we go. Do we have a motion?
Yes.
We do have motion Holmes. Second was Bruce, was it?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Seville.
All right, Baker,
aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Haudashelt,
Aye.
Joyner,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Spokely.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Yippee, yay.
Thank you, Sylvie. We'll go ahead and move on then to item M, Highway 49 sidewalk gap closure right of way. Mr. Spokely, I think you wanted to recuse yourself on this item?
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. I will turn everything off. Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll turn it over. Aaron, I think you've got this one.
Yes, I do have this. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Board of Directors. So today we're asking for your authorization for the Executive Director to negotiate and sign a contract for right-of-way services on the Highway 49 sidewalk gap closure project with the highest ranked firm that will not exceed an amount of $650,000. So the Highway 49 sidewalk gap closure project is a fully funded project on Highway 49 between I-80 and Dry Creek Road in North Auburn. The project will add approximately 3 miles of sidewalk to Highway 49, and it complements the current work and ongoing work that Caltrans is doing on Highway 49 to date. When both of these projects are complete, it will increase the sidewalk coverage along this 4-mile stretch of Highway 49 from 25% up to 75% sidewalk coverage in the corridor. We've diligently been working with staff from Placer County, the City of Auburn, Caltrans, and with the assistance of our consultant team from Wood Rogers, we've been working on this project since 2018. In January 2019, we were awarded $14.4 million to fully fund the project, help us through the right-of-way phase, and construct the project. We also received some money with a grant from the Active Transportation Program to develop a Safe Routes to School program in the North Auburn area. In December 2019, we received approval for the environmental documents for the project in the preliminary engineering. And then just recently in November 2020, we were submitted 65% design plans to Caltrans for approval. In preparation of our next phase of the project, which is the right-of-way phase, we released an RFP on January 7th to secure a firm to help us with the right-of-way acquisitions and temporary construction easements that will be necessary. And initiating the right-of-way phase now will allow us to continue working on, or to start working on the right-of-way phase concurrently with our final design, thus saving us time and accelerating the project. In order to expedite this phase, though, we are asking for authorization from the Executive Director, as I mentioned, to negotiate and sign a contract with the highest ranked firm for a not to exceed amount of $650,000. The PCTPA TAC was presented this item earlier this month and also concurred with this request. So that's my presentation today, and I'd gladly answer any questions that you have.
All right. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Do we have any members of the public that wish to comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no public comment at this time.
All right. Mike, any last comments? You were on mute, but I took that as a no.
Sorry, no, sir.
That's okay. All right, I'll accept a motion on the item.
Holmes
Burris
moves the
motions.
item. Nope. Holmes second.
Burrows was first.
Yep.
All right,
Ladies first.
we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Baker,
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Joyner,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Spokely recused.
He did.
All right. Motion passes.
Yay.
So Deanne, did we need Matt to formally state his reason for recusal?
He already did.
Did he?
Yeah, he said he was involved in the project.
All right, then we'll move on to item N, appointment of Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority representatives from PCTPA Board. Mike?
Yes, this very short item has to do with our participation in the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority, and typically we have two representatives and an alternate. We had John Allard retire from our board, as well as Cheryl Mackey from the City of Auburn, and to replace them, we have two volunteers, Bruce Howdeshelt and Matt Spokely as the alternate. So this is a very, very important project because especially with the third track project in play right now to expand rail service to Placer County and Roseville. This board, and especially with the mega regional project going on, is very vital to our interests. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and answer any questions, but staff would recommend that we move the action as presented in the report.
All right, questions, comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, I think it's imperative that we have a member from Roseville on the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority. So I am grateful that Mr. Howdeshelt, Hassenfether.
Just Bruce.
We need to have to pass that plan so we can do the kinds of things.
Could we all go on mute, please? We've got some feedback there. Thank you.
So anyhow, I move the item.
All right, I've got to open it up to the public real quick. Any members of the public wishing to comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, there's no public comment at this time.
All right, I do have a motion on the item. Do I have a second?
Burris second.
For a second. Roll call vote, please.
Baker,
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Joyner,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Spokely.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Yay.
We move on to item O, a resolution of appreciation for Luke McNeil Carrard for his service as Deputy Director of PCTPA. Luke, it would have been my honor to present this one, but I think it's more appropriate coming from Mike. So Mike, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a moment in an executive director's career, which he is both very happy for staff members that are advancing their career, and this is a case where Luke McNeil Carrard, who's been with us since 2012, has the opportunity to advance his career and move on to one of our engineering firms for PCTPA that's worked on our many of our key and vital projects, that being Jacobs Engineering. And so we're very, very happy for Luke to be able to move on in his career. And I think it's a sign of the success of our agency, and you know, hopefully I've added a couple little benefits to his career advancement in the last couple of years. But we're very happy to see that his career is moving on and is a testament to the success of our organization. However, Luke is a very vital component of our program. I mentioned earlier that we participate at things on a monthly basis like the RTPA and the California Transportation Commission, and Luke has performed in an excellent manner in those, going to those meetings, really gaining the support and support and knowledge that those agencies offer, and he's become an expert when it comes to funding priorities at the state level and has guided us very well. So again, bittersweet, but we're very happy for Luke, and we wanted to present for board consideration this morning a resolution which I will now read. So whereas Luke McNeil Caird has served as senior transportation planner engineer since 2012 and deputy executive director for PCTPA since 2017. And whereas Mr. McNeil Caird's dedication, leadership, expertise, and enthusiasm have been a force for the improvement of transportation systems in Placer County. And whereas Mr. McNeil Caird has been a champion for fiscal responsibility and the timely use of transportation dollars. And whereas through Mr. McNeil Caird's tenacity, diligence, and leadership, PCTPA delivered phase 1 of the Interstate 80 State Route 65 interchange improvement project on time and on budget, very, very important. And whereas Mr. McNeil is known in transportation organizations statewide for his commitment to Placer County and his determination to ensure rural and suburban concerns are reflected in statewide programs and policies. And whereas Mr. McNeil Caird has played a key role in fostering renewed collaboration with the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority, and Caltrans District 3, resulting in the successful award of $130 million to reduce congestion and improve travel options on Interstate 80. And whereas Mr. McNeil has been a model of leadership, collaboration, and public service and presence that will be deeply missed by the PCTPA board and his colleagues in and out of the agency. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency that Luke McNeil Caird hereby is commended for his outstanding dedication and service to the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency.
All right. Yeah. Any comments, questions from the board?
Yeah, Luke, Director Holmes here. I'm really grateful for the service that you provided for us here at the Transportation Planning Agency. You've really brought us up to a level that is unparalleled. And I'm happy for you for moving on. I regret seeing you go, but I'm just so happy that you're moving forward in your career. As many times when we were in an event for the California Transportation Commission or any other event regarding transportation, I always noticed that people would gravitate to you for information or your comments. Solvi seems to think that it's because you're stunningly handsome. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyhow, we're grateful that you were with us, and I wish you the best of luck as you move forward in your career. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I was struck by the word tenacity in that resolution that Mike read. And that's certainly one of the characteristics that Luke has. Luke also is, I remember one night when Luke came to the Roseville Planning Commission. I think I was chairing it at the time.
You're making him nervous, Bruce. I remember one night is not a great way to start.
One night in Bangkok. Yeah, okay. It was regarding tree removal for the Highway 65 viaduct, I think, by that portion of it, and we had the Sierra Club there. Luke is constructive and composed, and I guess my question is, Luke, did you negotiate that you would not have to go to night meetings? And that's what swung the deal for you to go to Jacobs.
I think I'll come to say it in here, Bruce, but I think I really appreciate your leadership on that planning commission and transportation commission. So I'll just leave it at that. But Bruce, I really, it's been great to know you, and hopefully I'm still around in California. Sounds like Matt has something to say, so I'll hold my comment.
Luke, it'll take me a little while to get over the complex that I developed when I realized that you were leaving. And we were doing this resolution for your departure on my first meeting with PCTPA. I had the pleasure of working with you, Luke, as you know, in your previous life before coming to PCTPA. I wish you nothing but the best of luck in your new endeavors. I know you're going to do awesome things, and we'll see you around the industry. So best of luck to you, Luke.
Thank you, Councilman quickly.
Anyone
And
else?
if I may, Mr. Chair, just quickly, Luke, this is Ken Broadway, and I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you. You've shown that it can be done better, faster, and more fiscally than most, and we certainly appreciate your leadership. I've always enjoyed working with you on the different projects because you found a way to always bring them in on time, and if not on budget, under budget. So just keep doing what you're doing. I know you'll be successful in your future pursuits, and we are certainly going to miss you. So thanks again for all you've done for Placer County and for our cities.
Thank you, Councilmember Broad.
Any other comments from the board? So Luke, I'll just very quickly go ahead and endorse everything that's been said. You've done a remarkable job. You will be sorely missed. And my suspicion is we're going to see Mike age very rapidly in attempting to fill your shoes and his own. So thank you for all you've done. I've got a very conspicuous hand raised over here from the public. Celia McAdam. Celia, go ahead.
To be able to speak.
Yep,
Can you hear me?
we can.
Excellent. My name's Celia McAdam. I was executive director at PCTPA for a couple of decades, and it's great to see everyone. It's heartening to me that I recognize everyone. As much as things change, they do stay the same. So it's wonderful to see everyone, but I'm here to talk about Luke. I had the privilege of working closely with him for most of the time he has been with PCTPA, and I realized that Luke joined the team just a couple of months before we cut the ribbon on the Lincoln bypass back in 2012. And I was thinking he might have gotten the impression that we did projects like that all the time. And he has found out that's not the case. But his hard work has meant projects have gotten done. And he has really joined into the on time and on budget mantra that we've had at PCTPA. I'm still a we. His work on Sparta, on the Placer Parkway, on I-80, on Highway 65 widening, on the Colfax roundabout, and particularly on the 8065 interchange have just been wonderful examples of his leadership, his work ethic, and as Mike mentioned, his tenacity. It's really paid off for the agency, as you well know, with the CTC being moderator of the RTPA group, and that huge grant for the Gateway project is all a testament to his connections, expertise, and stick-to-itiveness that, he's just a great team player and a team leader, and teamwork is how things get done. So I know that Luke is following his passion for project management over to the private sector, and they're really lucky to have him. But he's leaving some really big shoes to fill for the agency. And I do not envy Mike trying to fill them, but I wish, Luke, I wish you all the best. And I know I will be seeing you around as we continue out in the private sector.
Those are very kind words. Thank you for making the time to attend.
Any other members of the public wishing to comment on this item? I see none. Luke, you're a little gravelly, a little Darth Vader-like for all of us here, but I wanted to give you an opportunity if you want to talk to everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Joyner. Yeah, working from home has been a whole other experience in itself, but you know, when I talk to staff, I actually did get very emotional. I didn't think I would, but it is not often in your career that you can say that the place you work at feels like family. But definitely PCTPA feels like family. And those are very kind words in the resolution that was read. But I do want to thank the PCTPA board. You're an amazing board. I'm amazed by how unified this board is and how you can determine direction for this county. And the quality of life for our citizens in Placer County is immensely improved because of this board. And you give me a ton of mentoring and experience, and you trust me with some great projects. And I'm always thankful for that. I learned a lot, and I learned a lot. And Celia was just on. She was an amazing mentor. Mike's come in and helped me to really improve my career. So I really appreciate that. And I think PCTPA is an agency that is a model of a small but nimble staff who get things done. And this staff works hard. You may not see it every day, but they work really hard. And I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. And so I am excited about my next opportunity. I am going back to private consulting. I don't think I was long government anyways. I always think I had an entrepreneurial spirit, and so I'm excited. I will be working in Northern California, so expect me to be around, and you'll probably see me, Bruce, at some of those night meetings coming out. So I look forward to that opportunity, and I really thank everyone for my career. And I'm really humbled by the things that were said about. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Luke. What I will say is I think that trust the board placed in you was very well placed. You've done a remarkable job. I hope I see you around as well. I don't know that I'll be going to night meetings in Roseville, but maybe we'll see you in Lincoln. With that, I'll go ahead and accept a motion from the board on this item.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of a resolution of appreciation for Luke McNeil Caird for his service as Deputy Director of the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency.
I'll second.
I have a motion, Holmes, second, Spokley. Roll call vote, please.
Baker.
Aye.
Broadway.
Yes.
Burris.
Aye.
Holmes.
Absolutely.
Howdeshelt.
If I vote no, does that mean he stays? Yes.
I wish.
Yes.
Joyner.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Spokley.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
As well it should. When do we lose you, Luke? Is it tomorrow?
I start my new job on Friday.
Friday. All
Good
right.
luck.
Well, thank you for all you've done. We'll move on to the Executive Director's report. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very hard to kind of continue on. And in hindsight, I probably should have put that put that at the end of the agenda because I'm a bit emotional myself in this this big change for our agency. Luke will be very sorely missed, and although I'm very happy for him, I'm going to miss him a lot. So. Anyway, with the executive director's report, I have a few items to mention to you today. And then at the end, I'm actually going to turn it over to Aaron Hoyt, who is going to be giving our monthly report on traffic congestion and where we are at on that. So the 4 items I'm going to discuss are the CTSA, a little bit more on the Northern California mega region and some efforts up in Tahoe. Our Washoe County meeting, and then again, winding up with the traffic congestion report. So Kathleen is our resident expert and the staff person on point for our CTSA, as you know, and she does a great job in managing that program and all the aspects of that program. But we're going to be seeing some changes in some of the aspects of that, and Kathleen is going to be bringing that to you on our agenda in the next few months. And so beginning with the February meeting, that will include an update on the CTSA's non-emergency medical transportation program, including 2 programs that are have been with us a long time, the Health Express and My Rides program. The presentation will include both programs and their effectiveness, both before and after COVID, and a discussion of future programs changes that would potentially provide more service while reducing costs to the CTSA. We are at a point with Health Express where that program is very challenging due to its costs, and we're going to be recommending some changes to that to maintain our levels of service in the area of health ridership. CTSA staff intend to work with Seniors First, who is our provider and independent living partnership, with 2 nonprofit organizations with experience in developing cost-effective non-emergency medical transportation services. And so the February item will request your action on an agreement with that organization called the Independent Living Partnership, which is very active and very successful in Riverside County, but also in many other jurisdictions throughout California in terms of creating a viable volunteer ridership program. So that's something coming up and will occupy the next few board meetings. So giving you a heads up on that. The second item has to do with a new thing that we're participating in, well, new and old. As you know, our boundary for most of our activities ends at the Tahoe Basin, but we on occasion, at their request of the various agencies up in Lake Tahoe and some of our supervisors, we participate in things that are either relevant to us or they need our help on. And so one of those things is a thing coming up called the Tahoe Mobility Forum, which is a group of executive directors of different agencies and elected officials in the Tahoe area that are concerned with mobility and movement of people and goods and services in and out of the Tahoe Basin. And so they're going to be having a very important meeting in February, which we are participating in. Supervisor Gustafson is participating in, as well as a number of others. And this relates directly to the Northern California mega region effort. The mega region effort, probably had it not been for us, would have probably ended probably in Auburn. And we had to kind of remind them of that there's a little bit of connection that is very vital to Placer's interests throughout Placer County to Lake Tahoe. And then and most effectively to Reno, which is the next metropolitan area to our east and a partner of ours. And so we are making that connection through this mobility forum, and one of the topics that we're going to be discussing is the potential, and we've looked at this in the past, and this has been before the PCTPA board in the past, but the potential for maybe some expansion of long-term rail connections to Reno and the Lake Tahoe area. We looked at this in 2005 and it didn't pan out, but we're going to probably take a look at this again because the Tahoe area is very serious about establishing a new source of funding. That be the One Tahoe effort, which is being put forth by the Truckee Tahoe Transportation District and supported by the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, and that is a user fee for Lake Tahoe to support transportation improvements within the basin. And so we're going to take potentially take a fresh look at this, but we're going to discuss this at this important meeting in February. I did mention a couple times a meeting that we had with Washoe County, and I can't emphasize more the importance of this meeting and this relationship. Actually, Celia, our former director who spoke today, started a relationship with Washoe County many years ago, back in the days of Senator Reed and then Congressman Doolittle, which resulted in some very advantageous ties to obtain funding for Interstate 80. And so we are renewing that relationship with my counterpart, Bill Thomas, the Executive Director of Washoe County Regional Transportation Commission, to look at partnerships. So when it comes to federal funding on things like infra or build or other large scale funding programs, it really requires at that federal level, and because of the competition, a partnership, a regional partnership, and maybe in this case, a bi-state partnership in order to have our projects rise above others. And so this is a vitally important relationship with Washoe County. And the relationship extends also beyond just transportation. It has to do also with things like economic development. Washoe County has been very successful at attracting companies like Tesla and blockchain and many other Silicon Valley companies, and the same types of companies we are trying to attract here to Placer County. And so we want to take advantage of this relationship also from an economic development standpoint, which in turn does benefit transportation. One of the things that was vital to the recent award of the SB1 grant funding is our working with a little company called Tesla. Tesla has a major battery and other part facility in Reno, and they just recently located a supplier at the Auburn Airport. And because of that relationship, Tesla was able to help us lobby for funding for those grants that we just got funded. And so this connectivity to Washoe County, I can't say how important, how important this is, and a vital part of our funding program. So we're very happy that we had a great meeting with Bill Thomas and his staff. They are very enthusiastic about this relationship. And our hope is then to move that relationship from a staff level up to an elected level, working with Supervisor Gustafson and others to make that connection at all levels and make it a great relationship. The last item on my report has to do with the funding strategy and traffic congestion. And I'll just start this and I'll let Aaron finish it. Is that you authorized staff to move forward in October with working on our potential for looking at a 2022 transportation sales tax measure. We're starting to work on that with our team from FSB Public Affairs and Aldo Panesci and others. Very, very important project for us, if not the most important project for our agency. But one of the bellwethers on whether but to what degree we start that and when we kind of start in earnest is traffic congestion and the economy, which is directly tied to that. And so we have told the board that we will return to you every month with an update on where we're at with traffic congestion. Because if we don't have traffic congestion, we are going to find it very difficult to move forward with a sales tax measure. So with that, let me turn it over to Aaron. I would say that you're going to find new today. I'm not sure if Aaron would mention or not, so I will. Is the fact that we're not doing this in isolation. We are using our traffic consultant, which you mentioned in the past, WSP, to help us on this. But we now have added Caltrans Traffic Operations Center staff to the team to monitor traffic congestion. So this is a report that it comes from us, but it has the review and support of the experts in traffic operations with District 3 that is managed by Amarjeet Benapal, who was on the call earlier. So with that, I'll turn it over to Aaron to give a short presentation on where we're at with traffic congestion in South Placer County.
Thanks, Mike. And I'm looking at the clock, and I know we have our SPARTA board coming up, so I'll probably make this more brief than I was anticipating. But this is our third kind of update on where we're at with traffic's return to normal. We all are aware that the stay-at-home orders have really significantly dropped our need to drive to work, our need to go to other places, and it's changed our traffic patterns, where we're going in the time of day. And so we want to kind of just highlight a few of those things for you. Since this has started back in March, our overall vehicle miles traveled for residents within Placer County has dropped 50%. We can kind of see along this timeline here that there's probably instances where stay-at-home orders were initiated or holiday weekends that things actually have peaked. But through the end of December into the beginning of January, we're down 50% in terms of our overall vehicle miles traveled just in the county. Now, the next few slides are going to focus on the state highway system, and then I'm going to focus on State Route 65 and Interstate 80 because we do have a plethora of data available for us to use and to look at, and we don't have the same level of detail at the cities, although I have been talking with some of the public works staff to see if we can enhance these types of presentations in the future by utilizing some data from our cities. Granted, traffic is a riveting topic, and I know that's why you guys are all here on this board, but I'm going to try to wow you with the pictures rather than so much of the details. So the next, this slide here kind of shows a few different things. On the left-hand side of the screen, it's focusing on southbound State Route 65. On the right-hand side of the screen, it's focusing on northbound State Route 65. What we're noticing both on 65, and this is a spoiler alert for Interstate 80, traffic levels on a daily basis are back to within 10% of normal, within 10% of where they were this year, last year at this time. So we're getting very close. What we do see are fluctuations and differences in traffic trends during the hourly basis. So if we were to look at the southbound State Route 65 box that's showing kind of the hourly traffic volumes on the left-hand side of your screen, you're going to notice that the blue line in 2019, that's our typical peak AM commute period. So that blue line is much higher and much more pronounced than the red line, which represents 2020 in December. So we have seen on an hourly basis our peak hours shift from our typical commute to later in the morning, later in the day. And actually, once you get to the afternoon, 2020 levels on State Route 65 in the southbound direction are actually higher than they were back in 2019. You know, if you've driven 65 anytime recently, it seems like it's back to normal. And it is during certain parts of the day, but overall, our volumes are still a little bit lower. We also do notice that speeds are a little bit higher on both State Route 65, especially in the southbound direction, northbound direction. They seem to still be a little bit slower than they were back in 2019. In order to kind of more show you animation of what's going on with congestion on the left-hand side of the screen here, we're showing December 2019. On the right-hand of the screen, we're showing December 2020. And these are just kind of diagrams showing where congestion levels were at that point in time. On the left-hand side of the screen during the AM peak hour, we see that traffic was more backed up from about just north of the Sunset interchange. And then we also see it down near Galleria, where if you look at the AM peak hour now, it's more concentrated where we typically associate it with around Galleria Boulevard. But we can see On the bottom right hand of the screen, this is around 3:50 in the afternoon. We can see that traffic congestion is backing up more intensely than it was back in 2019. And that's attributed to people doing more trips during the day, maybe making their Zoom calls on their phone in the car as they're making and running errands. So there are some differences that we're seeing. I'm going to focus on I-80 now, and we'll wrap this up. Very similar screen here, kind of the same overall picture. The traffic is within 10% of where it was last year at this point in time. I-80 is a little bit different than State Route 65 because we do have interstate travel here, intra-county travel. And so our volumes are not as high as they were about a year ago in comparison to State Route 65. But we are still seeing higher traffic speeds, which is a result of lower traffic congestion. This is the same picture, but I-80 just east of State Route 65, very similar situation, within 10% of traffic volumes from a year ago, and speeds are higher as a result. All right, and I think this is the last screen here for you guys, and we'll turn this back over to the chair. Congestion, we can see that we had a lot more congestion on Interstate 80 back in 2019, where it's almost somewhat absent today in 2020. And, the historical trends of things backing up from State Route 65 are just not being seen today with the less commute traffic that's happening, closures of businesses downtown and other locations. And then we anticipate as traffic returns to normal, the triggers for that to happen are going to be likely with businesses opening back up, people commuting back to downtown Sacramento for the various jobs. So with that, that is the end of my presentation. I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Any questions or comments from the board for either Mike or Aaron on this item? I see none. Any public comment on the item?
No public comment at this time.
All right. Thank you both. We'll move on to item Q, board direction to staff. Is there any board direction for the staff? Seeing none. We are up against it on the clock. We all have, under item R, a number of information items in your packet. I would just encourage you to review those. Our next scheduled meeting is February 24th. And if there's nothing further, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you all.